Hi everybody, my guest today is guitarist Adam Goldsmith. Adam is a veteran when it comes to sessions, including films and TV and West End musicals, artists and many more. Here's what he had to say. Hi Adam.
Hello Chris, how are you?
I'm fine, and I'm glad that you're here with me today doing this. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for asking.
I just want to give a little bit of context before we start, because I've been very much a latecomer to the world of Gretsch guitars, and they are amazing and fantastic. But I didn't play one until a few years ago. Now, I first met you when I came in to do a load of depths on Beautiful, the Carole King musical. You were on the Guitar One chair, and you would always play this really nice Gretsch. And we had a lot of chats over the time that I was coming in that show, and we talked a lot about 335s and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, what I'm trying to get at is, when that show closed, I actually got offered a load of depths on the tour for Robbie, our friend Robbie.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, cool.
And it was the Guitar One chair, essentially what you'd been playing. And I thought, I'm going to need a Gretsch. I've never really played one, though. So I found a 6120 left-handed, and I went to try one out at Peach Guitars. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but bizarrely enough, I was sat in the room playing this through a nice little amp, and you walked past the room, and you were there.
Really?
Yeah. Do you not remember?
Oh, no, yes, I do remember. Yeah, no, I do. It was when they moved to Colchester, wasn't it? It wasn't the old school. Yeah, I do remember now. It was, I was buying something else.
Yeah, of course. But it was just like, if there was ever a meant to be moment for me to buy a guitar, it was right there and then. And you were like, yeah, that's the guitar. That's the guitar that you want. I was like, great. You know what I mean?
I don't remember the conversation, but I do remember that. Yeah.
So bizarre. So bizarre.
Yeah.
Anyway, man.
Wasn't there Nigel from Sir Guitars was there at the same time? Was that the same day? I kept bumping into people at John's shop.
Yeah, it could have been.
Well, I think it was the same. I think it was like, hi, oh, what's going on? It was,
yeah, amazing. And that guitar is right behind you right now, isn't it? Your one.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I love that guitar. It doesn't get used very often, but I do love it. They're really good.
Yeah, and like I say, I've been a real latecomer to the Gretsch thing, and they've been kind enough to send me a load to try out for all these videos that I've been doing and stuff. And I'll tell you one thing, man, even the cheaper ones, I've got a Streamliner here, which I like so much that I'm actually going to buy it off of them, because even the lower end ones are amazing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they're really good. I actually find that Gretsch seem to be one of the guitars, because when I go buy Gibsons or Fenders, mostly I haven't found anything that is good as the old ones. But Gretsch, I haven't played that many old ones, but the ones I have played, it's like they don't stay in tune. It's like they're a bit of a pain in the ass. But that, because it's the which one is it? Chet Atkins one.
Yeah,
and it's the Players Edition. I think they call it, or something like that. And so it's got the string through Bigsby.
Yes.
Which is, if anyone has ever tried to change the strings on a non-string through Bigsby, it takes weeks. It's a complete pain.
See, that's what I heard, because mine's the same with the string through thing. But didn't you used to have use pins or something like that for the ball end?
Yeah, you have to wrap them around. It's a total sketch. And then without the locking tuners as well, I think that they're better from the old ones that I've played. I mean, maybe there's a sound from some of the old ones, but I'm really happy with that. It works.
Yeah. And the Filtertron pickups and all that. Amazing.
Really good. Really good. Yeah.
Great, man. Listen, let's go back right to the beginning for you, if we can. I know you've done obviously a hell of a lot, and if we were to talk about everything, we'd be here for probably a couple of days. But I want to go back to the early days for you, and quite simply, what was it that made you pick it up in the first place? And did it come from, was it any of your family musical? And who were your inspirations?
I guess early inspirations. So the first two albums that I ever owned, basically, have sort of stayed with me today. Not specifically those albums, but kind of the styles of music that they represented. And I had them, they were cassettes, and my mum bought them for me when I was in primary school. One of them was Run DMC Raising Hell, and the other one was Iron Maiden Somewhere in Time.
Nice.
So for me, it's like, it doesn't really get much better.
Sure.
And also Queen, I guess, were a huge influence, like our kind of age group. I mean, I don't know about you, but I watched their live at Wembley, the '86 concert, not the Live Aid one, but the kind of Magic tour.
Yeah.
I think that's basically, before I picked up a guitar, I was sort of learning how to play it, if you see what I mean. Via that concert, I just watched it constantly. I had it on VHS. I had that, Star Wars, and Live Aid, which I just used to watch. What more do you want? Yeah, and nothing's changed. So, I guess Queen, Maiden, and Run DMC, I guess, were like very early influences. But I also had, my mum's a classical piano player, so I started to play classical piano when I was 7, which I was at. But I did learn how to read music, which later came in very handy. And then my dad was into the Beatles and the Stones, so I had a lot of influences, really, which I think has probably resulted in, you know, what I do for a living, really, which is generally playing lots of different styles.
Yeah. And I think that sort of thing, when you've got such a varied range of music that not necessarily that you're playing when you're so young, but you're listening to, it falls into your subconscious, you know what I mean?
100%.
You take that with you on the journey that you go on. Did you have lessons, or were you self-taught when it came to guitar?
Well, I had the piano lessons, classical piano lessons. I had a few different teachers. Like, in retrospect, I think that a lot more of it went in than I thought went in. You know what I mean? Because you do learn to read music and you learn basic harmony, really, you know, how the keyboard works. But guitar, I didn't start till I was about 13, maybe 12. I had an acoustic guitar, and my dad just showed me, you know, the basic open position chords. And I worked out, I remember the evening that I did it. It was completely magical. Moving the open E from the E position up to the 5th and then the 7th. And you got this kind of cool, sort of, you know, I mean, I was 12, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
Like sort of rocky sounding thing, you know. Yes. I can remember it. That's
basically the I Can See for Miles riff, isn't it, by The Who?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is, yeah. And yeah, so I was self-taught for quite a while on guitar, but with the aid of my dad. So we sort of, he'd show me some shapes and we played through. So my parents were divorced about a year or two. Yeah, they were divorced by then. I used to go over to my dad on the weekends, and on the Friday nights, we'd play through the Beatles songbook. Great. And he was like, there's like I guess like a working class kind of work ethic that he's got. So he was like, as he's from Birmingham, he was sort of born on a council estate in Birmingham, but he was always very, it always seemed, I mean, in retrospect, it was brilliant. Like, he wanted me to be able to make a living. You know what I mean? So he was like, right, if you want to do this for a living, you're going to need to read music, you know, because he'd done it a little bit in his 20s. He was quite a good musician, actually. He played bass as well. And so he used to make me read through the Beatles songbook. So I knew the Beatles songs through our versions before I knew the originals as well. So so that was kind of how I learned. I didn't have formal guitar lessons until I was about 15 or 16, I don't think.
Okay.
Off a local jazz player. He really introduced me to sort of Pat Metheny and Larry Carlton and those kind of guys. Called his name was Hugh Turner, who was and is a completely brilliant, out there, great funk jazz guitar player.
Right.
I'd love to see him, actually.
Yeah.
If he sees this, hello Hugh, you're my hero.
That's brilliant.
So yeah, that was it really.
As you got older, like you say, you started to progress into different styles, and you start to find, I think, at that point, more heroes, like say Pat Metheny, people like that. Was there anyone else around that time that was more of an influence on you than it had been before?
All the obvious rockers, I guess, at first. So, like in that kind of era, I guess it was Steve Vai and Joe Satriani were the big names.
What were you once told me, you don't have to repeat it now if you don't want to, but you once told me what happened there was a conversation between your mum and Joe Satriani or something.
The hell do you remember that? Yeah. I remember she took me to see a Joe Satriani gig, but I must have been 14 or something.
Yeah.
That was Hammersmith Odeon, maybe. I can't even remember. And I went back round the back to get an autograph. You know, I had a little Ivanhoe's t-shirt. I wanted to get it autographed. And so I met him. And then I walked off, And I was like, where's my mum gone? And I turned around and there's my mum talking to Joe Satriani. I was like, that's the most surreal thing. Because she'd heard all this music.
Oh,
she was
that's so good.
as well. So she'd heard it over the years and she liked it. So she was like, yes, I'm going to go and meet Joe Satriani.
Oh,
so she did. So I can still see that as well. I was like, why is my mum talking to Joe Satriani? That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Especially when you're 14 as well, because you're like, no.
Oh, that's the best story.
I can't believe you remember that.
Yeah, I do. I vividly remember you telling me that. So where did it go after that? You know, after you learned your craft for a while, and what I'm trying to move onto is how you sort of thought I might be able to make a go of this in terms of making a living, and how did it happen? Like first bands and, you know, whatever.
Well, so here's the thing. I think in those days, I mean, you'll know really, the career path there was no definition to it. First of all, I never considered not doing it for a living.
Right.
I didn't ever think that I would have to I didn't ever think that I would have to get a job. I just thought, I'm a guitar player. You know, in retrospect, that's quite cool, but I never considered it at the time. I was just like, yeah, I play guitar. That's what I do, you know. And in those days as well, obviously there was no internet, you know, or maybe there was, but no one used it.
No.
You know, even up to when I guess we're pretty similar age, and even up till, you know, sort of, I don't know, sort of 20 years ago, really. It was like you maybe had a Hotmail account, maybe you checked your email, but there was no YouTube, there was no Instagram, no Facebook. I mean, it was much better, essentially.
Sure, yeah.
So you just picked up the phone. You just joined a band. I was in a death metal band at school. That was my first band.
Nice.
It was like sort of Sepultura, and we couldn't find a drummer who could sort of keep up with us. So it was all programmed drums. Like, it was brilliant. I loved it though. We thought we were like, I don't know, whatever, a big deal. But we were obviously a difficult band, you know. But so that was my first band. I was also in a band at the same time, which was more like the Smashing Pumpkins. We were really into them as well. So a couple of those things, and then the local youth jazz orchestra at the same time. As you do, yeah. As you do. So it was just a succession of random events. And I think that now, I mean, this is a separate topic to the one that you've raised, really. But I think it's people that I know now, so through teaching, who are sort of, around 20, early 20s, just starting out or doing their degrees or whatever, they've almost got business plans. They go, right, this is my social media profile, and this is my YouTube channel, this is that. And I guess that's just the way the world is now. But I don't know about you, I imagine it's probably similar. You just sort of end up doing it, you know? Yeah. I mean, I sort of slightly begrudgingly as well, because like we were just having a conversation before we started this about the reason that we're having this chat today. I didn't ever expect to be starting a YouTube channel, you know, but you sort of just go with the flow and why not? You know what I mean? Because like you say, but if you're not doing it, everybody else is, and that's just the way the world is. But there was I don't know, it becomes too, I think, I don't know, I'd like to think it's, the kids today, it's too formulated is what I'm trying to say. Well, it shouldn't have to be, you know, just let it go like we were when we were, God, it makes us sound old, but you know, when we were younger and we were coming up and we were doing it, just go out and do it. You know, don't have a plan, because there is no plan essentially. It doesn't work anyway. No. You know, every time I've tried to make a plan, anything to do with the music business, it has failed spectacularly. Every single time I've gone like, oh, I'd like to do that gig. You know, I don't do it very often. Especially not in comparison to a lot of people, you know. There's like every time I've gone, you know, if I've known somebody's doing a gig and I've sent them an email saying, look, if you're looking for a guitar player, I'd be really interested. I've probably only done it, to the handful of times in my entire life. It's never worked, so I never do it. No. It doesn't work. And every time you wait for the sort of, without sounding like a hippie, like the stars to align, and it just comes to you, the right thing ends up coming to you. I don't think you can ever insert yourself into musical situations that you want to be in. No, and also my experience doesn't work. No, and I'm the same in that you have I think everyone has some sort of path in front of them, you know, whatever you believe in, there's something laid out in front of you. And then sometimes you think you'll try and deviate from that, but it never comes to anything. It never comes to fruition, but you always get sent back on this path that you're on for yourself. Yeah, I think that's really true. Especially in the last couple of years, I've really noticed that. I mean, I can't put it better than you just put it. It just, if you try and deviate from the path that is sort of set out for you, then it just doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. Exactly. You know.
So when did you do you remember your first paid gig?
Yeah, it was in my death metal band. It was £5 at the After Dark Club in Reading.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I don't think we ever got paid. I think it was supposed to, but I don't actually remember getting my £5.
And moving on from after the death metal band and the Smashing Pumpkins style band, where did you go from there? Did you go into further education with it as well?
I did. I did a classical music degree. I went to Birmingham, did a straight degree, classical degree. And I was doing National Youth Jazz Orchestra at the same time. So technically I've got a degree in classical music. I know zero. I know nothing about classical music. I don't know how that degree gets awarded because it's like literally it's meaningless. I quite enjoyed it, but it just meant a few years to practice, really. Sure. And Nigel was really the place I think I learned to play more. Yeah, that was more college for me. Okay. And then I did a jazz postgrad at the Royal Academy. And then here we are.
Sure. Basically. That's it. Well, thanks for coming today. And
okay. All right. Nice talking to you guys.
No, man, there's so much there. What happened after that? After you graduated, and like, how did you start getting the work essentially? And what do you remember what your first sort of bit of, I don't know, should we call it pro bit of work was? And, you know,
well, I guess a lot of it comes from Nigel. I think Nigel has probably changed a bit now. I was actually talking to Winston Rollins, trombone player, a good friend of mine who I've known for ages. Winston helped me get some of my first bits of work. I met him in my early 20s, and he sort of suggested me for Pete Long's band and things like that. And but Nigel, then you just sort of turned up. The reason why I'm mentioning Winston, is Winston is now, I don't know what his official title is, but he is like one of the musical directors for Nigel.
Right. Okay.
Basically.
I didn't know.
And he is. I think it's relatively new, but he was saying it's very formalised now. There's audition processes and there's certain criteria which you have to meet. There's all sorts of hoops you have to jump through because they're government funded and it's like an arts council thing. And there's a whole host of paperwork. But then you just turned up, and if you had the nerve to sort of stand in front of Bill and try and sight read the guitar feature, they'd probably let you do a gig, you know, and then you went to the pub afterwards, and if you could sort of hang out and everyone liked you sort of did the gig, and that was it. So Nigel was a big part of it. I think, finally, to answer your question, I think out of Nigel, there was Pete Long's bands. They were like jazz big bands. He had a band called, I do remember actually. I was doing Nigel gig, and Pete Long's runs the Ronnie Scott's Jazz Orchestra now. He was on the Nigel gig. He's older than me, but he was sort of guesting. And he came up to me after the gigs. I played a bit of banjo on the Nigel gig, and he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, don't know." You know, I was like, however, 22 or something. So obviously I wasn't really doing very much. And he said, "We need a banjo player to come to Spain with Echoes of Ellington, his Duke Ellington tribute band." So I went there, and then I ended up depping on I think it was his West End show through that, which was Soul Train,
right?
With Sheila Ferguson from, what was she from? Is it the 3 Degrees? I can't remember.
Maybe.
So yeah, it sort of spiraled from there, and so really it's all from Nigel, I think, and also the Pop Idol big band, which that was the biggest commercial thing that I did. I think was Pop Idol. So they had a big band. It was the Will Young and Gareth Gates. It was a big deal then. It was the first series. And I think that and Big Brother came out about the same time. So it was really the first probably not the first, but it felt like that whole reality TV thing had really taken a surge.
Sure.
So we did an album and a tour, and there were big venues. It was like Wembley and, you know, the arenas around the country, and a few of the TV shows. So I guess it was that really, Nigel and then Pop Idol. I think they were the two big things. And then from there I did some depths on Stars in Their Eyes TV series. I knew Ray Monk, who was the TV MD from Pop Idol. And and then it just sort of went from there.
Yeah, so it was all starting to fall into place, and obviously, you know, you do one, you move on to the next, etc., etc.
Yeah,
that was your in, and that was your first bit. I'm also going to say, I'm sure I remember you telling me when you did the Pop Idol thing, that was when you first met Deptford John, the legendary guitar tech, or am I wrong?
You've got an amazing memory.
Yeah, I try to.
Yes, Deptford John. Yeah, he was really funny. Yeah, he was fun. I haven't seen him since then, I don't think.
I haven't seen him in a long time.
He was brilliant because I was so green. I was like literally 22. I didn't really drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't do anything. You know, I was like really well behaved, quite shy as well. He'd been on tour with a band called Dogs d'Amour.
Yes, I remember them. Yeah.
Like a rough around the edges. Like I think they were a British rock and roll band. Anyway, and he said, so what do you want then? Like he was really friendly to me. Like he sussed me out really quickly. I was like really green, music college, well behaved, you know. And he said, what do you want then? And I said, I don't know. I've never had a guitar tech before. What can I have? And he went, well, how often do you want your strings changing? I went, I don't know, once a month. Like, I don't know.
Can you come around my house and do it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what to say. You know, like I suppose, I don't know, whenever they need changing. So he obviously had probably the easiest gig in the world.
Yeah.
Because he was like, and then the end of the tour, he said when he was on tour with Dogs d'Amour, which he'd just come off and then come to me, he had like little specific bits in the rest of the songs when he had to chop out lines of coke and stuff, and but bits of like glasses of whiskey and like all like it was a whole. I was like, what the? You know? Can I swear? Am I allowed to swear? Is that
fine? It's fine. I'll take it out after.
Oh, fine. I won't swear.
No, it's fine.
So he. So yeah, it was like a whole. It wasn't really to do with guitars. It was always like what sort of drinks had to be where at what point.
Yeah.
Like, because I was 22, I was like, what? Can we go back and do that again? I might ask for some different things, but he was absolutely lovely. He was so nice and so professional and so brilliant. And I'd love to see him again.
Yeah, so would I. He's a top geezer.
And then we met. Steve Harris from Iron Maiden was backstage at Wembley.
Nice.
I remember, and he really didn't want to talk to me. Like, I remember, I went up to him. I think in retrospect, I took it personally at the time, but in retrospect, I think he might just be a quiet guy, maybe.
Yeah.
I went up to him. I went, "You're Steve Harris, aren't you?" And John was there, which is the reason why I remember it. And he went, "Yeah," like that, because he brought his daughters to see the Pop Idol gig. Okay. I can't imagine it was his favourite music. And I went, I was a guitar player in the band, and he just went, all right.
Oh no!
I think maybe just quite. It was probably absolutely, you know, when you're that age, everything's about you as well, you know. So like, and I got him to sign the thing, and John put his signature in my case. Guitar case.
That's cool.
That's great. Cool. It was brilliant. I loved it. It was like being a kid. You know.
Great, man. So you were things have started happening for you at this point. So you started, like you say, around this time. That's when you started doing the shows in London as well. Sort of depping a bit on shows.
A bit later, yeah.
What sort of came first for you? Was it the session, more of the session stuff, or the shows? Like, where did it progress?
Oh, sessions.
Okay, weirdly. So tell me, do you remember your first session and how it came about and what it was?
The first one, when I remember thinking, well, big league, was the Stars in Their Eyes stuff, which was about the same time. I would have been early 20s. I was stepping for a guitar player called Mitch Dalton, who is a legendary session player, really. He was sort of our Tommy Tedesco, really.
Right.
He's still working, and he was, my hero when I was in my early 20s as well. And I was stepping for him in Ray Monk's TV band on the Stars in the Rise. So there was the other guitar player was Colin Green, who is similarly legendary, great guitar player, the most phenomenal sight reader I've ever seen in my life on guitar. I decked for Mitch, Andy Pask on bass, Brett Morgan on drums, Trevor Brown, on keys, who I think he moved to Mallorca or something. Ray was the MD. I think that was it.
Because you were depping on that, how daunting was it?
I was terrified because in those days as well, you didn't know what you were going to do. It was all about the reading. So you never got sent parts. That didn't happen. So I didn't, up until the day, I didn't know what I was playing. So, because they'd all been doing it for years. And I was, a child really, in comparison to them. They're all 20 years older than me. At least 20 years older than me in retrospect. I was terrified. I didn't sleep the night before at all. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all sessions were like that when I was that age. They were terrifying because you never knew what you were doing. Now, 50% of the time now, I'll get sent parts. Someone will send me a Dropbox link and be like, if you want to have a look at the parts, they're here. And which sort of takes the fun out of it in a way. But at the same time, ultimately, it sounds better because you end up having a look. So you think, oh, I might do that here and there, you know. I know what gear to bring and stuff. But then it was just like you brought all your gear and you didn't know what you were going to be doing. So it was terrifying.
Yeah, I can imagine.
For my whole 20s, I was terrified.
yeah, I bet. Can you give us like almost like a best of like your most memorable sessions over the years? What have been your favorite ones to do?
Memorable. It's more about I remember when I was in my 20s, like wanting to work with the older session guys was really memorable. It doesn't sound that glamorous to, you know, you're a layperson on the street, but I mean, even sitting next to Mitch was, for me, I mean, he probably thought, I'm pretty sure he thought I was a pain in the ass, but like, for me, it was like sitting next to Tommy Tedesco, you know, so that was brilliant. I mean, and working, you know, like the guys I've just mentioned, and then I was maybe a couple of years afterwards, started working with Steve Pearce and Ralph Salmons, and we worked for one particular MD, and that for me, that was brilliant. You know, when you're that age, to be working with the people who are a generation or two ahead of you in the job that you want to do was amazing. But in terms of profile, I mean, I decked for Dean Parks in Gloria Estefan's band for a bit in when she did Europe. So we did a few gigs around Europe, and we did one at the Albert Hall and there was one bit where and we played some of the music from, you know, the Miami Sound Machine and pop tunes.
Nice.
And we had Greg Fields on drums, who was Frank Sinatra's drummer. And there was one bit when I had to go out the front and play a duet with Gloria, who is the world's nicest person as well. Wow. And I remember going, okay, that's it. Yeah, right there. You have to remember that. You know, this is amazing. You know, because she's huge. I mean, not only in, you know, in the world that we know, but also the you know, the Spanish speaking world. Her record sales are phenomenal. I mean, it's quite easy not to notice it so much in England, I guess, but it's enormous. You know, she's huge in that. She's just as big there. You know, so it's like, with her, that was a big moment. I mean, profile, I guess. I decked for Tom Longworth, actually. Oh, yeah. A couple of times in Robbie Williams' band. And that was, for me, that was really cool. I enjoyed that. I haven't done, my live CV is not as big as some other people. So for me, something like that was really, really enjoyable, like doing the Angels solo.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that was really fantastic. And Tom's a great player. So I'd like, it's quite big shoes to fill, really. Yeah. You know, I remember just before that solo, this is a terrifying moment. My electricity went down on my pedal board. I looked down, and I had never played that tune with Robbie before, and I was just about to go, and I looked down, all the lights had gone out, and I was like, "That's what am I going to do now?" So literally, my foot went down. It just gone off for a minute. I thought, right, I'm just going to have to. You know, if there's an atheist equivalent of Pray, I'm going to have to do it now. You know,
yeah, sure.
My foot went down, the lights came back on, and I played it, and it was like that was pretty terrifying. So yeah, they were cool. Some live moments, things like that, are really memorable. I did a little tour with Seal as well, which was really great. Like playing some of his stuff.
Yeah, I bet.
Again, it was only a few gigs. It was around the same time as I did that Gloria Estefan tour, and so those two things, I felt good about myself. You know, then that was really good because he sort of, you know, like when you're a bit younger, you sort of, I've arrived, you know, and obviously after a while you just go, well, that was bull, wasn't it? You know, what are you doing next week? You're playing at somebody's wedding, aren't you? So shut up. You know?
Hey, you take the rough with the smoother. That's what it's all about. Isn't it? You know?
That's 100% what it's all about. Yeah. So there's been a few things, you know. Also, just getting better. You know,
yeah, of course. On the recording side of it, though, is, you know, perhaps where you excel more and you've done more because you've done, I mean, everything. TV, like you say. Even recently, you've done some TV. You do TV all the time. You're that face that you see on the Saturday night shows and whatever when there's a band there. You're always there. But I wanted to talk a little more about some of the film stuff that you've done, because, you know, I love movies and stuff like that. I remember, I could be wrong, but this might be another one of my good memory things. I remember watching the film 3 Billboards Outside of Missouri, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Great film.
Yeah.
Some great nylon stuff in there as I'm watching it. Just some, it was you, wasn't it?
Well, most of it is not me.
Okay.
I am on, well, yeah, I played quite a lot on it, but there's, I think all the sort of the country slidey stuff, the featured stuff is Hugh Burns.
Okay.
I did like, I played some nylon stuff and quite a lot of mandolin.
Yeah, that's what I remember vividly, the nylon stuff.
Oh, well, thanks very much. Yeah, so Hugh did majority, well, maybe not majority, but yeah, I think he was the main guitar player, but I did maybe 2 or 3 sessions on that, so it's quite a lot on there. But the sort of the country Americana stuff, which is synonymous with that film, is Hugh. Yeah, sure. But yeah, I did mandolin and nylon string.
Amazing.
I got the geeky chair. He got the cool.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, take it. Why not? And you also do a lot of stuff for Disney as well, don't you?
I have worked for Disney quite a lot in the last year, actually. I'm not very rarely get employed directly by them. It's usually by somebody who is working for Disney. So It's kind of a coincidence. But yeah, I've done a lot in the last couple of years, a lot for Disney, actually.
Is there? Can you name drop any films that have already come out that you've done stuff for?
Honestly, I can't think off the top of my head. There's been quite a few. Well, actually, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of it's much less glamorous, but there's been loads of sessions because they're Disney and they've got the budget for it. Big orchestral sessions at Abbey Road. Sure. Where they record the music for their theme parks. Right. That's been quite an industry, actually.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They do it all over here. Like, it's not. I think indirectly, a lot of the films are for Disney, whether you know it or not. I've just done a TV series, which I won't talk about because it's not out yet. I think there's some sort of press thing, but and I was working for FX, the TV company, American TV company, and they're ultimately owned by Disney. So a lot of the time, at that kind of level, you are actually working for Disney, whether you know it or not. You know,
sure. You get to do these sessions most of the time at Abbey Road, which is awesome.
A lot of the films at Abbey Road or Air usually.
Yeah. And some of them are quite big, obviously quite orchestral sometimes as well. Mm-hmm. Does it ever get daunting when there's that many people in a room?
Every time. Yeah. It depends what your guitar part looks like, really. If it's simple rhythm guitar or something, I mean, it's still got to have your game face on, but it's not daunting. If you're sat in the orchestra, if you're in the booth, it's kind of you're in your own little world. It's not so bad. But if you're sat in an orchestra and you have to play a little classical guitar solo, sometimes that's a bit daunting. It used to be more daunting for me when there was no click, which is not that regular on films. But sometimes things might be recorded with no click because you have to follow a classical conductor. Sure. And they have a very different way of working, like rhythm section. If you're in a jazz group, that would be like, and you know where the beat is. It's pretty obvious. But with classical conductors, they have a way of conducting. It starts with them, and they'll do. I don't know anything about it. Like they'll make some grand gesture, and it'll actually come out like a wave from the first violin to the back of the orchestra. So it's like that for me is daunting because I have to be certain that I'm playing in the right place. Yeah, that's quite difficult. But when there's a click, it's not that daunting as long as you can play. I mean, what I try to do is, especially with films, is usually it's about. It sounds a bit hippie-ish, but like usually it's about some sort of emotion when you're playing. And there's a lot of like single string nylon guitar playing in films, So if you can see what's going on the screen, that's great. Sometimes you can see the rough cut or whatever it is that you're playing to. And you think, right, I mean, I remember doing one of the Bridget Jones films, and I could see that it was a love scene. It was Renee Zellweger and that fellow, Colin Firth. Yeah. They're having a love scene, and I could see what it was. So it's a very simple part, but I try and, again, without sounding self-indulgent, try and get involved in the emotion of what's happening there and play for the film. So
Sure.
I find that as long as you focus on something which is external to yourself, then it gets rid of the terror.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Yeah, of course. And you're still able to overcome that, and in doing so, you're able to put some soul and feel and passion into what.
Yeah, that's really the point. I mean, it's interesting actually. I don't know if I go off on tangent, but when I have people come in for lessons, a lot of the young guitar players, a lot of people will come to me for tips about sight reading, and they're like, right, so I want to do sessions, so I need to sight read, and I'm like, well, yeah, fine, but sessions for me, it's not about reading. I don't ever think about reading, but there seems to be a common conception with the younger generation that you've got to be this like laser sight reader, and I sort of think, yeah, you do have to be able to read, but that's fine. Anyone can do it. You just have to do some practice. It's not hard,
Sure.
You just have to do it every day. But really, that's, for me, it's not the point. The point is like the intent and the musicality and the soul of what you're playing, and being able to access that quickly in the studio. Say if you are in a commercial environment, being able to access that musicality quickly rather than it taking you 400 takes to get that.
Yeah.
So sight reading is just a means to an end. I found that that's the thing that comes up a lot as a common misconception, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, well, I think it can also be transferred to, all the theatre stuff, all the musicals. It's not about, like you say, exactly that. Not so much about the reading. It's about making it sound good, making it sound soulful, and doing it consistently.
100%.
It's as simple as...
Guitar players are the only people that care about reading, because it's like some mysterious art with guitar
players.
No one else cares. No one cares. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's like it's what you sound like that matters. How you get there is up to you.
Yeah, exactly. Which moves us on to all the theatre stuff. We touched on it earlier, but give us a highlight of some of your favourite musicals that you've played in.
Well, Beautiful was brilliant.
Yeah, it was a great show.
That's where we met first, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. They were. Just from an outsider looking in, really, as a dep coming in, it was. Just every time I did that show, it was so much fun, and great songs. You know what I mean? What a catalogue of songs they were to play. And for you doing it all the time, it must have been amazing, Really good, really good. I mean, it was also such a great band. Ian Wilkinson on drums and Steve Pearce on bass. That's you can't get better than that, really. No. And it was a privilege, like I say, for me to come in and do it, with you guys. It really was.
Oh, well, it was a privilege for us to have you as well. So that's great.
Do you remember the night I happened to be in? It was like a Monday night, and she turned up. And she got on stage. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember the overtime. Yeah,
unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Carole King was there. That was cool. That was very cool for CJ, who was the lead.
Yes,
I'm in her band, and she played Carole.
Yeah.
Show, and then the real Carole King turned up.
Incredible.
I
just thought it must have been bizarre for the audience because it was literally, I'm sure it was like a Monday night or something like that. And I remember. The crowd had just watched a show about this woman's life, and then after the bows, she actually comes on stage, and they lost their shit. They really did. It was amazing.
She's the real thing, man. I mean, all that music, her and James Taylor, and to my shame, actually, I didn't realise quite how much she'd written before I did the show. I was like, oh, she wrote that as well. Like every time you turn the page, I didn't know she wrote that. I knew there's a few which I knew, but I wasn't an expert.
Man.
Even near, and it was like, wow, that's incredible. The output, ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are other than Beautiful, what are your other favourites that you've done?
Well, the first ever one I did, just because it was so much fun, and I was about 24 or something. It was Jerry Springer, the opera.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was really hard as well.
Right.
It was like written by this guy called Richard Thomas, who's also a comic, a comedian. Like a comic writer.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like sort of trained, but he's amazing. I mean, his harmony and everything is completely incredible. It's almost like Kenny Wheeler. He's incredibly talented and very nice man. The reason I'm pointing out that he's not trained is because the harmony was so sort of classical, like modern classical Kenny Wheeler-esque. That it was a surprise, that somebody could just come up with that stuff without having been to school for it, But I mean, he wrote such great music, and the guitar parts were great, and I had some really good friends in the band. And that stage in your life, everything's fresh and new. It was brilliant. So I love doing that. I mean, they've all had something. Hairspray was really good fun. I remember actually when I got asked to do that gig when Hairspray came into the West End, and when it started in the West End, it was already on Broadway, and I had I wanted to find out what the guy in America, because sometimes when the Americans come over, they want you to use the same equipment that the people on Broadway. So I was like, "Have you got the guy in America's email address?" So they said, "Yeah, his name's John. Here's his email." I was right. Okay, cool. So I emailed him. I was like, "Okay, no, John." And then I got an email back, and I was like, John. Oh, and it was John Harrington. And I didn't realise I'd sent him the email, and I'd replied to it without even, John Harrington, they're a place to Steely Dan now. And, also, it was fabulous, like really well. He was like, I'm really into it, but I didn't put two and two together. I was like, wow, it's John Harrington, and I've just gone, all right, mate, what pedals are you using? Like that. I love you, you're brilliant. But yeah, he was doing that. And so yeah, Hairspray was great. Anything where you get to play out. But I mean, I think it's always fun because 9 times out of 10, you're with your mates.
Yeah.
And that's really, it's how we know each other, isn't it? It's like,
and you end up being with familiar people.
The pub.
Exactly. You
see, for anybody who's listening to this who doesn't know that scene, in the West End, there's certain pubs which all the musos go to between shows, did before COVID, and hopefully again next month. So you got to know everyone. It was brilliant. Even if you, I remember doing 42nd Street for 6 months or something, and it was like, the music's not really my favourite thing in the world. Very good orchestrations, but I probably wouldn't listen to it. And but I still had a great time because you're playing. I'm in an orchestra, and all my mates are there. So
we should quickly, to finish up, we should talk about, we haven't really spoken about gear or anything like that. So give me your currently, because I know things change for everybody quite, from time to time. Give me your current favorite guitar or guitars.
That's changed as well. Shall I show you? I'm in my...
Sure.
So this is my, sorry, bear with me for a second. This is my baby. I've got 3 guitars which I would save from the building. This is my number one. This is a 1967 Gibson 335.
Beautiful.
It's just that's the best thing that I've ever bought. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Did you change the pickups in it?
No, they're original.
All original.
Not PAF. The one after it's PAT. So the one after PAS, but before the T-Tox, I think it's PAT.
Okay.
They are PAFs, but they have the number.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Nice.
So that's my number one.
Beautiful,
so
man.
That's from 1967. And I've got 2 others. Seeing as you asked, you're going to get it.
Absolutely, please. They're all the wrong way round, but it's fine. Don't worry.
This is not right for this podcast, is it? So this is also from 1967. That's Telecaster. Rosewood board, though. I kind of like the slightly more...
That looks like it's in bloody good condition.
Oh, it's a refin.
Okay.
Yeah, it's entirely original. Actually, apart from this, which is a DiMarzio.
Okay.
Because the original pickup, which I've got, didn't sound very good. It was really weak. The treble pickup sounds amazing, but this one didn't. Just net pickup didn't sound good. So I put a DiMarzio in. The original one is up there somewhere. And then my Strat, which is this is quite an interesting guitar, actually. So when I bought it, because I was prepared to spend, I thought I better get a good Strat. As now I'm a grown up, I should probably have something which isn't, a Jap Strat from 1983. I was prepared to spend a bit of money and get a 62 or something. And I tried a few out, and I thought, well, they're nice. I went down Denmark Street, tried a few, and they're nice, but I don't really feel that I would have, borrowed 12 grand or whatever it was to buy one. And I thought, well, they're good, the ones that I tried, but nothing I wasn't really getting out of a custom shop one, to be honest.
Sure.
And then I picked up what was this, and it had, this is a 64 neck, and the pickups are 64, and the knobs and a few bits and pieces are original as well. So basically the neck's like that Brazilian rosewood thing with the clay dots, and the pickups, they're original. But it had I think it was like 69 or 70s white body. No one was quite sure because it was a bit bastardized and dug out. So it had a different neck and a different body. But I picked it up and it just rang. Actually, it didn't just ring, but the neck was, I was like, that's the one. The neck is so beautiful.
Right.
Like it had that feel which you can't really get from the custom shop. It was just beautiful. But the body was quite heavy. So eventually I was like, I'm going to get someone to make me a body. The body wasn't anything special, really. It was like very late 60s, early 70s. That can be a bit heavy. And it was, like, it was all right, you know. But it sounded, the guitar sounded great, but I wasn't into the body. So I got a chap called Scott Cameron, who I think is Irish. I never actually spoke to him. We just exchanged emails. He made me this body. I got him to make it look a bit like Mike Landau's one.
Amazing.
And it's relics, but in a way which really, you know, you can only get if it's one bloke doing it, not a production line. You know?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's quite hard to tell for me, you know, even up close, it looks very impressive the way it's done.
Nice.
So it's half 64, half brand new.
That's brilliant. And it totally, and 100% yours, which is the best thing.
100%, yeah. So those three guitars really, because they're like mine. I've got PRSs and, you know, Taylors and those sort of guitars. Like, they're brilliant, but you can always buy another one. But these,
of course,
kind of my you know.
What are you using in terms of amplification at the moment for the most of what you're doing?
Well, I've got a Dumble clone, which is made by a company called Red Plate, which is probably my favourite guitar amp. A little Princeton, which I love. Yeah, it's got uprated speakers. I don't know what they are. And yeah, that's it really. I've got a few of the DI things. This is a new thing called a Milkman amp, which is pretty cool. I haven't tried. I've heard very little about them. What are they like? Are they good? Really good. I think I've velcroed this down, but don't worry. Don't worry. It's all right. It's it. Found it now. It's this little fella. It's an amp, but it's got a cabinet sitting on the back as well. But it's actually an amp. It's got a 12AX7 in there. Oh, okay, nice. So you put it on your pedal board and you go direct in with the cabs in, and you can use all your pedals. Which of course, cool. Yeah. It feels much better to me. Sorry, Kemper, but it feels better than the Kemper. It feels more like an amp. But the downside is you've only got one amp, whereas of course, with the Kemper you've got all the amps. Yeah, so you then rely more on pedals and you're getting less variation. But hey, it's a good. You know, sometimes that's what you want is just a good single solid sound just to build on, to stick all your stuff on top. You know, and if you've got something that saves space. Oh, I'll check it out, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really worth it. It's good. I like it. Excellent. That's it. Right, Adam Goldsmith, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. That's all right. Thanks for coming.